Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku became the chosen successor. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The wind at the top of the world was colder than Izuku Midoriya had expected. It whipped around the concrete precipice of the shopping district building, tugging at the frayed collar of his middle school uniform, drying the tears that had already begun to crust on his cheeks. Below, the city of Muzidafu hummed, a vibrant, chaotic tapestry of sirens, car horns, and the distant cheers of a society in love with its protectors. But up here, amidst the rusted ventilation units and the pigeon feathers, there was only silence. And the steam, thick, white steam poured off the emaciated skeletal figure standing before Izuku. It wasn't the steam of a hot engine ready to work. It was the exhaust of something broken, leaking its last reserves of energy. Izuku's knees were trembling. His red sneakers, usually so eager to run toward danger, felt glued to the tar paper of the roof. He had asked the question that had burned in his chest since he was 4 years old, the question that had survived Bakugo's explosions, his mother's pitying tears, and a decade of silence from the universe. Can I be a hero, even without a quirk? He looked at All Might. Not the titan of muscle and smiles who dominated the billboards, but the man behind the curtain. Sunken eyes. Hollow cheeks. A scar that looked like a crater on the side of his torso. The symbol of peace looked like a dead man walking. All Might sighed, a sound that seemed to rattle in his chest like loose change. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives, the man said. His voice was deep, but it lacked the booming resonance of his public persona. It was tired. So incredibly tired. Some villains just can't be beaten without powers. So, no, I honestly don't think you can become a hero without a quirk. The world stopped. Izuku felt a physical sensation in his chest, like glass shattering inward. It wasn't a sharp pain, but a dull, numbing collapse. The breath left his lungs, leaving a vacuum that refused to refill. I see, Izuku whispered. The wind snatched the words away before they could even reach his own ears. All Might continued, oblivious to the fact that he was currently executing a boy's soul. He turned toward the stairwell door, coughing slightly into his hand. If you want to help people, there's always the police force. They get a lot of flack because the heroes capture the villains, but it's a fine profession. A fine profession. Realistic. Attainable. It's not wrong to dream, All Might said, pausing with his hand on the heavy metal door. He looked back. His blue eyes filled not with malice, but with a pity that was infinitely worse. But you have to consider reality, young man. The door clanged shut. Izuku stood alone on the roof. He didn't move for a long time. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in bruised purples and bloody oranges. The reality All Might spoke of settled onto Izuku's shoulders, heavier than any gravity quirk. Consider reality. Reality was Kaken's palm popping with nitroglycerin against his shoulder. Reality was the teacher looking away when his desk was vandalized. Reality was the doctor leaning back in his chair, tapping the X-ray, saying, "You should probably give up." He was right, Izuku murmured to the empty air. His voice cracked. He was right all along. Everyone was. He walked to the edge of the roof. For a terrifying, suspended second, he looked down at the street far below. The cars looked like toys. The people were ants. If he took one step, take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in the next life. Kaken's voice echoed in his mind, loud and violent. Izuku gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white. A sob ripped through his throat, violent and ugly. He pulled back from the edge, falling onto his backside on the gravel. He couldn't do it. He was too cowardly even for that. He couldn't even die right. "I'm sorry," he sobbed into his hands, apologizing to no one and everyone. "I'm sorry I'm useless." The walk down the stairs was a blur. Izuku moved like a ghost, his body on autopilot. He exited the building into the alleyway, the shadows stretching long and dark. Boom! A massive explosion rattled the windows of the building he had just left. Izuku flinched, his head snapping up. To the south, a pillar of black smoke was rising, thick and oily, curling into the sky like a serpent. Screams followed. The distinctive wail of sirens cut through the evening air. A villain attack. His feet twitched. His body leaned forward. It was instinct. It was the muscle memory of a fanba who had spent his entire life chasing these sounds, notebook in hand, desperate to witness the miraculous. I should go. I should take notes. Who is fighting? Is it Kamui Woods? Empty lady? He took a step. Then he stopped. You have to consider reality. The notebook in his backpack felt like a brick of lead. Hero Analysis for the Future, Volume 13. The title mocked him. There was no future. Not for him. Not the one he wanted. Why should he go? To watch someone else live his dream? To stand in the crowd, a useless, quirkless spectator, scribbling notes that would never be used, studying a test he was never allowed to take? No, Izuku whispered. He turned his back on the smoke. He turned his back on the screams. For the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya walked away from a hero fight. He adjusted his backpack straps, lowered his head, and began the long, agonizing walk home. He didn't know that miles away, in the heart of that smoke, a boy with ash-blonde hair was suffocating in sludge, his eyes darting wildly for a savior who wasn't coming fast enough. He didn't know that All Might was there, struggling against his time limit, waiting for a spark of inspiration that would never arrive because the boy who provided it was walking in the opposite direction. By the time Izuku reached the apartment complex, the sky was pitch black. He opened the door quietly. I'm home. Izuku. Inko Midoriya rushed from the kitchen, her apron stained with sauce. Her face was pale, eyes wide with the perpetual anxiety that had defined her parenting since the day of his diagnosis. You're late. I was so worried. I saw the news, the sludge villain incident. It was so close to your school. Izuku froze in the Jenkin, toeing off his red shoes. I took the long way around. I didn't see anything. Inko let out a breath, her shoulders sagging. Oh, thank goodness. Come, sit. I made katsudon. She bustled back to the kitchen. Izuku walked to the table, feeling like an intruder in his own life. The apartment was warm, filled with the savory smell of pork and egg, but he felt freezing cold. He sat down and stared at the bowl placed before him. It was terrifying, Inko chattered, trying to fill the silence. She turned on the small TV on the counter. That poor boy. The heroes had such a hard time. Izuku looked up at the screen. The news was replaying the afternoon's event. The headline flashed in bold kanji, Victory and Tragedy, Sludge Villain Apprehended. The footage was shaky, taken from a news helicopter. It showed the shopping district in flames. It showed Backdraft putting out fires. It showed Death Arms and Kamui Woods standing back, looking helpless. And it showed Bakugo, Katsuki Bakugo, tied to a stretcher, being loaded into an ambulance. He wasn't thrashing. He wasn't yelling. He was wearing an oxygen mask, his eyes wide and vacant, staring up at the roof of the ambulance. His uniform was torn, his skin covered in burns, not from his own quirk, but chemical burns from the sludge. The victim, a local middle school student, was trapped for nearly 10 minutes, the reporter's voice said gravely. Pro-heroes were unable to intervene due to the villain's hostage situation and the hazardous fires. Eventually, All Might arrived on the scene and delivered a smash that changed the weather, blowing the villain apart. All Might saved him, Izuku thought. Of course he did. However, the reporter continued, doctors say the victim suffered significant hypoxia. It was a close call. If All Might had arrived 30 seconds later, Inko shook her head. It's so dangerous. I'm just glad you weren't involved, Izuku. Izuku stared at the screen. He saw the way Bakugo looked. Broken. The invincible Katsuki Bakugo, reduced to a victim, and then, the camera panned to the heroes. They were being interviewed. It was a tough situation, Death Arms was saying, rubbing the back of his neck. My quirk wasn't a good match. We had to wait for the right specialist. We focused on crowd control, Kamui Woods added. A hot, ugly coal of anger ignited in Izuku's gut. It was a sensation so foreign to him that he almost gagged. They waited. They stood there and watched Kaken suffocate because they decided the matchup was bad. They treated a life-or-death struggle like a rock-paper-scissors game. I can't beat paper, so I won't play. And All Might. All Might had told Izuku to be realistic. To give up. All while he was running out of time himself. Izuku? Honey, you haven't touched your food. Izuku stood up abruptly. The chair screeched against the floor. I'm not hungry, Izuku. I'm going for a walk, he said, his voice hollow. I need air. But it's late. You just got home. I won't be long, he lied. He grabbed his backpack, he didn't know why, habit perhaps, and walked out the door before his mother could stop him. He couldn't look at her. He couldn't look at the pity in her eyes. It mirrored the pity in All Might's eyes, and he felt that if he saw it one more time, he would scream until his throat bled. He walked without destination. Muzurifu at night was a different beast than during the day. The shiny veneer of the hero's society faded when the sun went down, revealing the grime in the cracks. The neon signs buzzed with an irritating hum. The shadows between buildings seemed to stretch like grasping fingers. Izuku found himself drifting away from the residential district, away from the well-lit main streets. He walked toward the industrial sector, an area of warehouses and closed factories. It was quiet here, no heroes patrolling, no fans cheering. Just the sound of distant traffic and his own uneven breathing. You should probably give up. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm so sorry. Take a swan dive, consider reality. The voices swirled in his head, a cacophony of rejection. He clutched the straps of his backpack, his knuckles white. Why did he have to be the one? Why was he the anomaly? 80% of the world had power. He was the 20%. The reject. The evolutionary dead end. He kicked a soda can skittering across the cracked pavement. It clattered loudly, echoing in the narrow street. Hey! The voice came from the shadows of a loading dock to his left. Izuku froze. He looked up, blinking through his matted green bangs. 3 figures stepped out of the darkness. They were rough-looking, wearing mismatched street clothes. One was tall and lanky with fingers that seemed too long. Another was squat and wide, his skin possessing a rocky texture. The third, the one who had spoken, was average build but held a butterfly knife that caught the light of the lone street lamp. You look lost, kid, the knife wielder sneered. He had a mutation quirk. His eyes were insect-like, multifaceted and unblinking. This ain't a place for a UA wannabe. He gestured to Izuku's uniform. Izuku took a step back. I was just walking. I'm leaving. Walking? The rocky man laughed, a sound like grinding gravel. With that nice backpack? Bet you got a wallet in there too. Maybe a phone, the lanky one added, his fingers twitching. I need a new phone. In any other situation, Izuku would have been terrified. His heart would be hammering, his mind racing through escape routes, analyzing their quirks based on physical mutations. Rocky skin implies durability, avoid close quarters. Long fingers might be a capture quirk. Insect eyes mean enhanced vision, hiding is impossible. But tonight, Izuku just felt tired. He looked at the knife. It looked sharp. I don't have much money, Izuku said softly. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't run. We'll be the judge of that, Insect Eyes said, stepping closer. Hand over the bag. Izuku didn't move. A strange apathy had washed over him. If they stabbed him, would it matter? Would the world mourn? His mom would. She would cry. She would say, I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, just like she always did. Are you deaf? The thug lunged forward, grabbing Izuku by the collar. Izuku didn't resist. He was slammed against the brick wall of the warehouse. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but he didn't gasp. He just stared into the multifaceted eyes of his attacker. What's with this kid? The thug muttered, unnerved by the lack of fear. He's creepy. Just check his pockets, crush him, and let's go, the rocky man grunted. Hey! The thug shook Izuku. You got a quirk, kid? Or are you gonna make this easy? Izuku's eyes drifted to the side. I don't, he whispered. I don't have a quirk. The thugs paused. Then they laughed. It was a cruel, raucous sound. Quirkless? The lanky one cackled. Damn, talk about bad luck. You're practically extinct, so nobody will miss you then, Insect Eyes grinned, raising the knife. Quirkless little trash. The blade glinted. Izuku closed his eyes. He waited for the pain. He waited for the end of the reality he had been told to accept. But the pain didn't come. Instead, the air pressure in the alleyway dropped. It wasn't like the wind on the roof. This was a heaviness. A sudden, crushing density that made the very atmosphere feel like lead. The laughter of the thugs died instantly in their throats. "I find that logic quite distasteful," a voice said. It was a voice like smooth velvet over jagged glass. Cultured. Calm. And terrifyingly authoritative. Izuku opened his eyes. Standing at the mouth of the alley was a man. He was tall, wearing a pristine black suit that seemed to absorb the dim light around him. He stood with a casual elegance, his hands in his pockets. His face was shadowed, but Izuku could make out the sharp line of a jaw and a smile that didn't reach the upper half of his face. "Who the hell are you?" Insect Eyes shouted, though his voice wavered. He turned the knife toward the newcomer. "Get lost, old man, unless you want to get cut." The man in the suit tilted his head. "So quick to violence. It is the resort of those who lack vision. Get him!" The rocky thug roared, charging forward. His skin hardened, turning into gray stone. He pulled back a fist to smash the intruder. The man in the suit didn't move. He simply raised one index finger. Snap! An unseen force, like a cannonball made of compressed air, slammed into the rocky thug. There was a sickening crunch of stone and bone. The thug was launched backward, flying past Izuku and embedding himself into the brick wall 10 feet up. He hung there for a moment before peeling off and crashing to the ground, unconscious. Silence reigned. Izuku stared, his mouth slightly open. He hadn't seen the man move. He hadn't seen a wind-up. Air pressure? Telekinesis? Shockwave generation? No, there was no gesture. It was instantaneous. "You!" Insect Eyes trembled. "What did you do?" "I simply removed an obstruction," the man said. He took a step forward. The tap of his dress shoe on the pavement echoed like a gunshot. The lanky thug panicked. "Screw this!" He shot his hands forward. His fingers elongated like whips, lashing out toward the man's throat. The man caught the tendrils with one hand. He didn't just catch them, he gripped them. A dark red and black energy crackled around his hand for a split second. The lanky thug screamed. It wasn't a scream of pain, but of violation. I can't feel what did you do to my quirk?" The man released the fingers, which snapped back, limp and useless. "I merely turned it off." It was irritating. He waved his hand casually, and the lanky thug was swept aside by a gust of wind, tumbling into a pile of trash bags. Only Insect Eyes remained, holding Izuku by the collar, the knife shaking against Izuku's neck. "Stay back!" the thug shrieked. "I'll kill him! I swear I'll kill him!" The man in the suit stopped 10 feet away. He looked at the thug, then at Izuku. "Go ahead," the man said. Izuku blinked. "What?" The thug was equally confused. What? "Kill him," the man repeated, his voice bored. "If that is the extent of your ambition. You threaten a child to protect your own worthless hide. If you wish to kill him, do so. But know that the moment you draw blood, I will not simply knock you unconscious. I will disassemble you, piece by piece, until you are nothing more than a biology lesson on the pavement." The threat was delivered without anger. It was a statement of fact, as inevitable as the tide. The thug looked at the man's face, or what he could see of it. He saw death. With a whimper, the thug dropped Izuku and scrambled backward. He dropped the knife and ran, sprinting past the man in the suit, disappearing into the night. Izuku slid down the wall, hitting the ground hard. He gasped for air, his throat stinging where the knife had pressed. He looked up. The man in the suit was standing over him. Up close, the presence was overwhelming. It wasn't the shining brilliance of All Might. It was the vast, consuming darkness of a black hole. It was terrifying, yet oddly stabilizing. The man extended a hand. "Are you injured, young man?" Izuku stared at the hand. It was pale, large and scarred. "I know. I'm fine." "Good." The man bent down and picked up something from the ground. It was Izuku's backpack, which had fallen during the scuffle. The zipper had popped open, and a notebook had slid out. "Hero Analysis for the Future, Volume 13. Izuku flinched. "Wait, that's..." The man ignored him, flipping the notebook open. He began to read. Izuku waited for the laughter. He waited for the sneer. What is this nerd stuff? Stalker Diaries? Detailed, the man murmured. He flipped a page. Mount Lady. Gigantification. You've noted that she requires a 2-lane street minimum to operate effectively without collateral damage. A shrewd observation. Most heroes don't think of spatial awareness. He flipped another page. Kamui Woods. Weakness to fire and dehydration. Effective bind range is 20 meters. The man closed the book and looked down at Izuku. You wrote this? Yes, Izuku whispered. You analyzed their quirks. Their strengths. Their weaknesses. Why? Izuku looked down at his scraped knees. I wanted to be a hero. I thought if I studied them, if I learned everything I could be like them. Could? The man caught the past tense. You have stopped wanting this? I'm quirkless, Izuku blurted out. The shame burned his face. I have no power. I can't save anyone. All Might, even All Might said so. The air around them grew colder. All Might said that? The man's voice dropped an octave. It vibrated in Izuku's chest. He told me to be realistic, Izuku said, tears pricking his eyes again. He told me to give up. The man in the suit let out a low, dark chuckle. It wasn't directed at Izuku, but at the absurdity of the world. Be realistic, the man repeated, tasting the words. How very like him. The symbol of peace, crushing the dreams of those he deems unworthy based on a genetic lottery. He held the notebook out to Izuku. Izuku reached up and took it. Thank you for saving me. I didn't save you to be a hero, the man said. I saved you because I hate wasted potential. Potential? Izuku looked up, confused. But I'm quirkless. I'm useless. Is a knife useless because it lacks a handle? The man asked. Is a gun useless because it has no bullets? No. They are merely incomplete. You have a mind, boy. A sharp one. I watched you during the fight, before I stepped in. Izuku froze. You were watching? You were analyzing them, the man said, crouching down so he was eye level with Izuku. Even while being beaten, even while facing death, your eyes were tracking the one with the knife. You noticed his weight distribution. You noticed the lag in the rocky one's movements. You weren't fighting with your body, because you couldn't. You were fighting with your mind. Izuku trembled. No one had ever noticed. Everyone just saw him cowering. The world tells you that power comes from quirks, the man continued softly. That if you can't breathe fire or lift a truck, you are nothing. They are wrong. He stood up and offered his hand again. What is your name? Midoriya, Izuku stammered. Izuku Midoriya, Midoriya. A green valley. A pleasant name. The man smiled. My name is Shigaraki. But I have gone by many names over the years. He did not say all for one. Not yet. Tell me, Midoriya, the man said, looking up at the smog-choked sky. Do you think the society that rejected you is right? Do you think it is just that a boy with a brilliant mind is discarded like trash simply because of his DNA? Izuku thought of Bakugo. The praise he got for a violent quirk. The way the teachers let him bully Izuku because he had hero potential. He thought of the heroes watching Bakugo suffocate today, waiting for the right matchup. He thought of All Might on the roof. No, Izuku whispered. The word tasted like ash and iron. It's not fair. No, it is not, the man agreed. This society is built on a lie. They call it peace, but it is merely suppression. They elevate the strong and trample the weak, and when the weak break, they call them villains. He looked back at Izuku. His eyes, which Izuku now saw were not just dark, but scarred and ancient, bore into him. I can give you what you lack, Izuku Midoriya. Izuku's heart stopped. What? I can give you power, the man said simply. I can give you the ability to stand tall. To make them listen? To prove them all wrong. All Might. Your classmates. The world. You can give quirks? Izuku asked, his voice barely audible. That's impossible. Nothing is impossible, the man said. Only difficult. I possess the ability to take power and give it. To redistribute it to those who are worthy. He stepped closer, his shadow engulfing Izuku. You have the heart of someone who wants to change the world. But you lack the hands to do it. I am offering you the hands. Izuku looked at the man's hand. It was large, inviting. Consider reality. The reality was that Izuku was nothing. But this man was offering him a chance to be something. Why me? Izuku asked. Why would you help me? Because I know what it is like, the man said, his voice lowering to a whisper that sounded like a secret shared between conspirators. To have a vision that no one else understands. To be the only one awake in a world of sleepwalkers. I need a successor, Izuku. Someone who can think. Someone who can analyze. Someone who understands pain. He leaned in. All Might rejected you. He looked at you and saw nothing. I look at you, and I see everything. I see the next king. A tear slid down Izuku's cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of relief. For the first time in his life, someone was looking at him. Really looking at him. What do I have to do? Take my hand, the man said. Come with me. Leave this life behind. The mother who pities you. The friends who torment you. The heroes who failed you. Walk with me into the shadows, and we will build a new world. A world where you are not the victim. Izuku looked back toward the street. Toward his apartment. He thought of Inko. I'm sorry, Izuku. He thought of the empty room waiting for him. The shrine to All Might that now felt like a graveyard. He looked back at the man. At the power radiating off him, Izuku Midoriya reached out. His scarred, trembling hand grasped the large, cold hand of the stranger. The man's fingers closed around his. A grip of iron. Good, the man said. And for the first time, the smile reached his eyes. It was a predator's smile, terrifying and triumphant. Very good. Come, Izuku Midoriya. Your training begins tonight. Izuku stood up. The pain in his ribs from the thugs faded. The despair in his heart was replaced by a cold, burning resolve. He didn't look back. As they walked away into the darkness of the industrial district, the street lamp flickered and died, plunging the alley into total blackness. The symbol of peace had lost his successor, and the Prince of Shadows had just been crowned. The ride was silent, smooth, and terrifyingly luxurious. Izuku Midoriya sat in the back of a black limousine that seemed to swallow the city lights as it glided through the streets. The interior smelled of expensive leather, and something faintly antiseptic, like ozone. Across from him sat the man who called himself Shigaraki. Izuku's hands were folded in his lap, clutching the straps of his backpack so tightly his fingers were numb. He hadn't spoken since they left the alley. The adrenaline that had propelled him to take the man's hand had faded, leaving behind a cold, clammy dread. What have I done? He looked out the tinted window. They were moving away from the industrial district, heading toward the older, wealthier part of the prefecture, areas where politicians and retired heroes lived in gated seclusion. You are analyzing the route, the man said. He didn't open his eyes. He sat perfectly still, a monolith of calm in the moving vehicle. Izuku flinched. Habit. I'm sorry. Never apologize for awareness, Izuku, the man replied smoothly. Awareness is the first step toward control. Tell me, what do you see? Izuku hesitated, swallowing the lump in his throat. We're heading north. Based on the lack of streetlights and the density of the foliage, we're approaching the Kamino district, or perhaps the outskirts of Jaku. The car has reinforced glass, bulletproof, likely quirk-proof. The suspension is modified to handle heavy weight, maybe for transporting cargo heavier than passengers. The man smiled. It was a small, pleased expression. Excellent. You see the world not as it presents itself, but as it functions. Most people see a car. You see a transport vessel. Most people see a hero. You see a celebrity with a marketing team. Izuku looked down at his knees. I used to see heroes. I just wanted to be one. And you shall be, the man said. But not a hero of the status quo. Not a hero who smiles for cameras while children are beaten in alleys. You will be a hero of consequence. The car slowed, turning down a narrow, unmarked road that led toward a nondescript medical facility. It looked like a private clinic, perhaps for geriatric care or long-term hospice. It was unassuming, boring, and utterly invisible to the public eye. Where are we? Izuku asked. My home, the man said as the car descended a ramp into an underground garage. And my laboratory. Welcome to the womb of the new world, Izuku. The facility underground was vast. As they stepped out of the car, the air temperature dropped. The smell of ozone grew stronger, mixing with the sharp tang of formaldehyde. The walls were metal, lined with pipes and conduits that hummed with a low, thrumming vibration. Izuku followed the man, his footsteps echoing on the great floor. He clutched his notebook to his chest like a shield. "Master!" a voice shrieked from down the hall. A small, round man in a lab coat waddled toward them. He wore thick, tinted goggles that magnified his eyes, giving him the appearance of a manic toad. His mustache bristled with excitement. "You've returned! And you brought a guest?" The doctor stopped, peering at Izuku with intense, unsettling curiosity. "A child? Is he a donor? A specimen?" "A student, doctor," the tall man corrected. "Izuku, this is Dr. Kyudai Garaki. He is the architect of my medical needs and the custodian of my research." Garaki leaned in, sniffing the air around Izuku. "A student? You. But what about Tamura? He will throw a fit, master. A tantrum of epic proportions. Tamura requires competition to thrive," the man said dismissively. "Besides, this boy is different. Dr. Garaki, prepare the diagnostic suite. I want a full biological workup. Genetic sequencing, quirk factor analysis, cranial nerve mapping. Everything." "Ooh," Garaki rubbed his hands together. "A full workup? Is he special?" The tall man placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. The weight was heavy, possessing. "He is quirkless." Garaki froze. Then, he burst into cackling laughter. "Quirkless? A relic! A blank slate! Oh, master, you always bring me the most interesting toys. Come, come, boy, let's see what makes you tick, or rather, what doesn't." Izuku looked up at the tall man, panic rising in his chest. "Diagnostic? I thought you said you'd give me power." "I didn't agree to be an experiment." The man looked down, his expression unreadable. "Power is not a coat you put on, Izuku. It is an organ. It is biology. If I am to grant you a quirk, if I am to rewrite your DNA, I must understand the canvas before I apply the paint. Do you trust me?" "Trust?" Izuku looked at the man's hand on his shoulder. He thought of the rooftop. He thought of the empty apartment. He thought of the years of being called Deku. He didn't have anywhere else to go. Izuku took a breath. "I trust you. Good." The man gently pushed him forward. "Go with the doctor." The next 3 hours were a blur of cold metal and invasive lights. Izuku was poked, prodded, scanned, and sampled. Dr. Garaki worked with a speed that belied his age, muttering to himself in a string of medical jargon that Izuku could only half understand. "Extra toe joint present, vestigial quirk factor 0, receptor sites are dormant but highly plastic. Interesting, very interesting." Izuku lay on a metal table, shirtless, hooked up to a dozen monitors. He felt small. He felt like a frog in biology class, pinned open for the world to see his emptiness. "You really have nothing, do you?" Garaki muttered, staring at a monitor displaying Izuku's double helix. "It's rare these days to see a genetic code this quiet. Usually, there's noise, conflicting genes from parents, mutations fighting for dominance. But you are silence. Is that bad?" Izuku asked, shivering slightly. Garaki spun around on his stool, grinning. "Bad? Boy, it is magnificent. Do you know why most bodies reject multiple quirks? Why the Noma become mindless beasts?" Izuku shook his head. He had heard of the Noma on the news, the mindless monsters. The comparison made his stomach churn. "Noise!" Garaki shouted. "Quirks have echoes. They carry the personality, the will, the genetic memory of the user. When you stuff too many voices into a room, you get chaos. You get madness. The brain fries because it cannot process the cacophony." He pointed a gloved finger at Izuku. "But you are an empty room. Soundproofed. Pristine. You have no quirk of your own to fight back. No genetic ego to clash with an intruder. You are the perfect vessel." Vessel. The word hung in the air. Not a hero. Not a villain. A container. The door to the lab hissed open. The tall man, Sensei, as the doctor called him, walked in. He had removed his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing arms that looked powerful but scarred, the skin mottled and strange. The verdict, doctor? He is compatible, Garaki announced, practically vibrating. Incredibly so. His body is naturally adapted to withstand high stress. He's been training, hasn't he? I clean up the beach park, Izuku whispered. I lift trash. He has built a foundation of muscle on a frame meant for nothing, the man said, nodding approvingly. He has prepared his body for a power he never expected to receive. Fate is poetic. The man walked over to the table and looked down at Izuku. Sit up, Izuku. Izuku sat up, swinging his legs over the side of the cold table. The doctor says I'm empty, Izuku said quietly. Then I'm a good vessel because I'm nothing. The doctor lacks poetry, the man said softly. He sees emptiness as a vacuum. I see it as potential. A cup that is full cannot receive water. You, Izuku, can hold the ocean. He gestured for Izuku to follow him. Come. It is time for you to understand the history of the world. The real history. They entered a room that looked like a library, but instead of books, the walls were lined with secure, illuminated glass cylinders. Inside each cylinder swirled a faint, colored gas, a visual representation of preserved genetic material, quirks. Hundreds of them. Izuku stared, mesmerized and horrified. Are these stolen? The man finished the sentence. Liberated. Preserved. Saved from those who would waste them. The man walked to a large leather chair and sat, gesturing for Izuku to take the seat opposite him. You know the story of the glowing baby in Ching Ching City, the man began. The dawn of quirks. The chaos. Yes, Izuku said, his analytical mind kicking in. Society collapsed. Laws couldn't keep up. It was the Dark Age before the establishment of the hero system. The hero system, the man sneered. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. A system designed to put a pretty mask on a eugenics war. Izuku blinked. What? Think, Izuku, the man commanded. Before quirks, humanity strove for equality. We made laws to protect the weak from the strong. But when quirks appeared, suddenly, might made right again. The strong could do whatever they wanted. And who decided who was a hero and who was a villain? The government, Izuku said. The strong, the man corrected. Those with the most powerful quirks banded together, called themselves heroes, and demonized anyone who didn't fit their mold. They created a hierarchy. If you have a useful quirk, you are a celebrity. If you have a dangerous quirk, you are a monster. And if you have no quirk, he looked pointedly at Izuku, you are dirt. Izuku gripped the armrests of his chair. It made sense. It made a terrifying amount of sense. It explained Bakugo. It explained why the teachers let Bakugo hurt him, because Bakugo was hero material, and Izuku was nothing. I tried to bring order, the man said, his voice taking on a tragic cadence. I saw the chaos. I had the power to take quirks from those who used them for evil and give them to those who needed them. I tried to equalize the world. To make it fair. You gave quirks to the quirkless? Izuku asked. I did. And I took them from the greedy. I was a king of peace. But the heroes didn't like that. They didn't want equality. They wanted dominance. And so, they branded me the symbol of evil. They hunted me. They tried to kill me. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. All Might is the culmination of that system. A man who smiles while he crushes anyone who disagrees with his definition of justice. He rejected you, Izuku, because you don't serve his system. You are of no use to his machine. Izuku felt a tear slide down his cheek. The anger he had suppressed for years, the anger at the unfairness, the bullying, the neglect, was bubbling to the surface, guided by the man's smooth voice. I don't want to be useless, Izuku whispered. Then don't be, the man said. Become my heir. Help me tear down this false society where worth is determined by birth. Help me build a world where power belongs to those with the will to use it, not just the lucky. But... Izuku hesitated. To steal quirks, isn't that wrong? Is it wrong to take a weapon from a murderer? The man countered. Is it wrong to give food to the starving? Morality is a story told by the winners, Izuku. History is written by the victors. We are going to rewrite it. He stood up and extended his hand toward the wall of cylinders. I am not just offering you a quirk, Izuku. I am offering you my quirk. Or, at least, the seed of it. Izuku's eyes widened. Your quirk? All for one, the man declared. The power to take and the power to give. It is the ultimate power. And it requires a mind that can analyze, process, and understand the complexities of thousands of abilities. A mind like yours. He looked at Izuku with a terrifying pride. You have studied heroes your whole life. You know their strengths and weaknesses better than they do. Imagine that knowledge paired with the ability to take those strengths for yourself. Izuku imagined it. He imagined standing before Bakugo. He imagined catching an explosion, stripping it away, and leaving Bakugo powerless, just like he had been. He imagined the look on All Might's face. It was a dark thought. A villainous thought, but it felt good. I'll do it, Izuku said. His voice was steady. I'll be your successor. The procedure was not a surgery. It was a crucifixion. Izuku was strapped to a chair in the center of the lab. Dr. Garaki was monitoring the machines, his face a mask of frenzied concentration. Thick cables were attached to Izuku's temples, his chest, his spine. This will hurt, the man, all for one, said. He stood behind Izuku, his hands resting on the boy's head. The body fights change. The soul fights invasion. You must break through the pain. You must claim this power, or it will consume you. I'm ready, Izuku lied. He was terrified. Begin. All for one activated his quirk. It didn't feel like an injection. It felt like someone had poured liquid nitrogen and molten lava into Izuku's veins simultaneously. Izuku screamed. His back arched off the chair, straining against the leather straps until they creaked. The world turned white. It wasn't just physical pain. It was the sensation of his very being unraveling. It felt as though his memories, his personality, his self were being shredded to make room for something else. Give up! Useless! Deku! The voices of his past swirled in the hurricane of agony, and then a new voice. Dark. Ancient. Hungry. Room. I need room. It was the quirk. It was alive. It was forcing its way into his genetic code, rewriting the double helix, smashing through the barriers of his biology. Izuku felt his mind fracturing. He saw flashes of things he didn't know, people crying, battles from decades ago, a man with white hair reaching out. Hold him steady! Garaki shouted. His vitals are spiking. Heart rate 200. He's going into shock. He will not break. All for one's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. Push, Izuku. Don't let it ride you. Ride it. Izuku gritted his teeth so hard he felt a molar crack. He remembered the notebook. The analysis. Quirks are physical abilities. They are resources. Manage the resource. He visualized the black mass invading his body not as a monster, but as data. As a variable in an equation. He grabbed onto the pain mentally and tried to organize it. It's just energy. It's just power. Store it. Catalog it. File it. Slowly, agonizingly, the white-hot pain began to recede into a dull, throbbing ache. The screaming in his mind quieted to a low, predatory hum. Izuku slumped forward in the restraints, gasping for air. Sweat pooled on the floor beneath him. Remarkable, Garaki whispered. He integrated it in under 4 minutes. Most subjects would be brain dead. All for one released his grip on Izuku's head. He sounded exhausted but pleased. Open your eyes, my apprentice. Izuku opened his eyes. The world looked different. The lights were sharper. The hum of the electricity in the walls was audible, distinct. He could feel the doctor's presence, not just see him, but feel the biological hum of his life force. It was a faint, pulsing light that Izuku instinctively knew he could reach out and snuff. He looked at his hands. They looked the same, but beneath the skin, he felt a void. A deep, endless hunger that waited to be fed. How do you feel? All for one asked. Izuku unclenched his fist. The air pressure in the room seemed to bend around him, acknowledging his new existence. I feel. Izuku's voice was raspy. Hungry. All for one laughed. It was a genuine, triumphant sound. Excellent. Recovery took 2 weeks. Izuku spent the time in a private room within the facility. It was furnished like a high-end hotel room, a stark contrast to the grim laboratory. He was given books, philosophy, political science, quirk theory, all for one visited daily, teaching him, molding him. He learned about the underground network. He learned about the corruption in the Hero Public Safety Commission. Every lesson was designed to reinforce the idea that Izuku was on the side of a necessary revolution. But the most jarring encounter came on the 3rd day. Izuku was eating a meal, high-protein slurry designed by Garaki, when the door opened. A young man walked in. He was thin, pale, with messy light blue hair and dry, cracked skin. He scratched at his neck incessantly. He wore black clothes and carried an aura of decaying menace. He stopped in the doorway, staring at Izuku with red, hate-filled eyes. "So," the young man rasped. "You're the new pet." Izuku put down his spoon. "You must be Shigaraki." "Tamura Shigaraki." Tamura flinched at his name, scratching harder at his neck. "Sensei talks about you. The analyst. The prodigy. I think you look like a generic NPC." "Sensei mentioned you too," Izuku said, keeping his voice level. He analyzed Tamura instantly. Irritated skin. Compulsive scratching. Fingers kept splayed. Touch-based quirk? 5-point activation? Dangerous. Did he? Tamura stepped into the room. The floorboards creaked. "Did he tell you that I'm the leader of the league? That you answer to me?" "He said you were his student," Izuku corrected. "Like me?" Tamura's eyes narrowed. "I'm not like you. I was chosen. You were just found. You're a stray dog Sensei picked up because he felt sorry for you." The word stung, hitting close to Izuku's insecurities. But the new power inside him stirred. It reacted to Tamura's hostility not with fear, but with aggression. The void wanted to take. "Maybe," Izuku said, standing up. He was shorter than Tamura, but he didn't back down. "But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere," Tamura sneered. He reached out, his hand hovering inches from Izuku's face. "I could turn you to dust right now." Game over. Izuku didn't flinch. He felt the quirk inside him coil, ready to lash out, to grab Tamura's wrist and drain him. "Tamura." All for One's voice came from the hallway monitor. "Play nice with your brother." Tamura froze. He glared at the speaker, then back at Izuku. He lowered his hand. "Brother," Tamura spat the word like a curse. "Don't get comfortable, NPC. The moment you slip up, I'll crumble you." He turned and stormed out, slamming the door. Izuku let out a breath he had been holding. He looked at his hands. They were shaking, but not from fear. They were shaking from the effort of holding back. I could have stopped him, Izuku realized. I could have taken his power. The thought was intoxicating. And terrifying. The final test came at the end of the 2nd week. Izuku was brought to a training room, a reinforced concrete bunker. All for One stood behind a glass partition. "Today you eat," All for One's voice came over the intercom. The door on the far side of the room opened. A man was shoved inside. It was the thug from the alley. The one with the rocky skin. He looked battered, terrified. He had been kept prisoner since that night. "You!" The thug's eyes widened as he saw Izuku. "The kid? The quirkless kid?" "Not anymore," Izuku said softly. He wore a simple black training suit. He felt lighter, faster. "The subject possesses a hardening-type quirk," All for One explained. "A simple mutation. Durability enhancement. It is crude, but useful. Take it, Izuku." Izuku stared at the thug. "Take it? He tried to kill you," All for One reminded him. "He would have crushed your skull against the pavement and laughed. He does not deserve this power." "You do," the thug roared, panic overriding his confusion. "I don't know what's going on, but I ain't dying here." His skin turned to gray rock. He charged at Izuku, a living boulder. Izuku didn't move. He watched the thug come. Speed moderate. Form sloppy. Opening, right flank. In the past, Izuku would have dodged. He would have run. Now, he stepped forward. As the thug threw a punch, Izuku ducked under the swing with unnatural grace. A result of the minor physical enhancement quirks Garaki had spliced into him during the surgery. He stepped into the thug's guard and placed his hand on the man's rocky chest. Take. Izuku pulled. It wasn't a physical pull. It was a metaphysical one. He felt the knot of energy inside the thug, the quirk factor, and he grabbed it with the tendrils of his own power. The thug screamed. The gray rock rippled. It looked like ink being sucked into a vacuum. The stone skin receded, flowing from the thug's body into Izuku's palm. My skin! Give it back! Give it back! The thug shrieked, his voice cracking as he reverted to vulnerable flesh. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest, sobbing. I feel cold. Why is it so cold? Izuku stumbled back, looking at his hand. He felt a surge of warmth. He felt sturdy. He felt safe. He concentrated. His own skin turned gray. It hardened, taking on the texture of granite. He tapped his arm. Clink. Clink. He had done it. He had stolen a quirk. He looked down at the thug, who was curled in a fetal position, broken and weeping. The man wasn't dead, but he was hollowed out. Izuku felt a wave of nausea. This was a person. He had violated him. Well done, All for One said, entering the room. He clapped slowly. How does it feel? Izuku looked at his rocky hand. Then he looked at the crying man. It feels. He thought of the rooftop. He thought of the fear he had lived with his whole life. He thought of the feeling of being made of glass in a world of hammers. He clenched his rocky fist. It was unbreakable. It feels necessary, Izuku said. All for One smiled, placing a hand on Izuku's head. Good. You have taken the first step. You are no longer the empty vessel, Izuku. You are the collector. And soon, you will be the king. Izuku deactivated the quirk, his skin returning to pale flesh. He stepped over the weeping thug and followed his master out of the room. He didn't look back. The notebook in his mind turned to a new page. Quirk acquired, hardening. Status, active. Hero name, none. Villain name, pending. The door hissed shut, sealing the darkness inside. The boy who wanted to save everyone was gone. In his place stood a boy who would save the world by bringing it to its knees. The beach was still filled with trash. In another life, perhaps, Dagoba Municipal Beach Park would have been cleared by now. A young boy with stars in his eyes might have spent 10 months hauling refrigerators and tires, crying and sweating under the watchful eye of the symbol of peace, building a temple of cleanliness to prove his worth. But in this reality, the trash remained. It rotted in the salt air, a monument to society's neglect. Izuku Midoriya stood atop a pile of rusted scrap metal, looking out at the ocean. The wind whipped his dark hair, which was cut shorter now, sharper. His middle school uniform was gone, replaced by a simple black workout shirt and cargo pants. His arms, once twig-like, were corded with dense, efficient muscle. He didn't come here to clean. He came here to remember what the world really looked like. Broken. Discarded. Forgotten. You're brooding again, NPC. The voice was dry and scratchy. Izuku didn't turn around. He knew exactly where Tamura Shigaraki was standing, 3 meters behind him, slightly to the left, balancing on a washing machine. I'm thinking, Izuku corrected, his voice calm. 10 months ago, Tamura's presence would have made him stutter. Now, it was just background noise. Sensei is waiting, Tamura spat. Today is the day. The big premiere. If you're going to back out, do it now so I can dust you and save us the embarrassment. Izuku turned slowly. His eyes were green, but the shine was gone. They were matte, absorbing the light rather than reflecting it. I'm not backing out, Tamura. I've spent 10 months preparing for this. Training, Tamura scoffed. You call that training? Sensei coddles you. He gives you quirks like candy. Here, Izuku, have a regeneration factor. Here, Izuku, take this kinetic booster. It's cheating. Izuku hopped down from the trash pile, landing silently in the sand. He walked past Tamura, their shoulders almost brushing. It's not cheating, Izuku said softly. It's resource management. You should try it sometime. Tamura's hand twitched toward Izuku's neck. Izuku didn't flinch, he simply activated Danger Sense, a passive quirk Sensei had bestowed upon him a month ago, and noted the trajectory. If Tamura moved, Izuku would break his wrist before 5 fingers made contact. Tamura sensed a shift in the air. He pulled his hand back, scratching his neck furiously. Just get in the car. Don't make us late. The last 10 months had been a descent into hell, painted gold by the man Izuku called Sensei. While his former classmates studied for exams and played video games, Izuku had been disassembled and rebuilt. Dr. Garaki had been the architect of his body. All for One had been the architect of his mind. He had learned to fight, not with the flashy moves of a pro hero, but with the brutal efficiency of an assassin. He learned to identify weak points, knees, throats, livers. He learned that honor was a handicap and that the only thing that mattered was the objective. And he had learned to handle the voices. Inside him, the quirks swirled, hardening. The thug, spring limbs. A vigilante who got too close, airwalk. A gift from Sensei, kinetic booster. Stolen from a Yakuza enforcer. At first, they had been loud, a cacophony of phantom instincts. But Sensei had taught him the mental discipline to silence them, to lock them in the basement of his mind until he needed them. Now, he was ready for the final layer of his disguise. In the limousine, All for One was waiting. He held a UA High School application form in his hand. The entrance exam, All for One mused, tracing the gold lettering. The gateway to the ivory tower. I've memorized the answers for the written portion, Izuku said, sitting opposite him. I've analyzed the past 10 years of practical exams. It's usually robotics. Destruction-based. Good, All for One said. But remember your objective, Izuku. You are not there to simply pass. You are there to embed. The master leaned forward, the scarring on his face stretching as he smiled. You must be the perfect hero student. Humble. Brave. Self-sacrificing. You must make them love you. You must make All Might look at you and wonder why he ever let you go. I understand, Izuku said. And your quirk? Superpower, Izuku recited the cover story. A generic emitter type. Allows for momentary bursts of enhanced strength and speed. No visible mutation. Drawback. Recoil damage if overused. Perfectly vague. All for One nodded. It explains your strength without revealing the multitude of abilities you possess. You will use the kinetic booster and the strength enhancer in tandem. Keep the others, airwalk, hardening, sensory, hidden unless absolutely necessary. Do not reveal your true nature. The car stopped. They weren't at UA, but a few blocks away from Izuku's apartment. He had to keep up appearances with his mother. One last thing, All for One said as Izuku reached for the door handle. Izuku paused. All Might will be there, the villain said softly. He has taken a teaching position. It was in the network chatter. Izuku felt a cold spike in his chest. The man who broke him. The man who started all of this. I know, Izuku said. His hand tightened on the handle until the plastic creaked. I'm counting on it. The morning of the exam, the gates of UA High were massive, a testament to the ego of the institution. Izuku walked through them, wearing the standard black gakurin of his middle school. He blended in perfectly with the sea of nervous teenagers. He walked with a calculated slouch, his eyes wide, feigning the awe he used to feel. Analysis. Security sensors at the gate. Passive quirk scanners. They detect activation, not latency. I'm safe, he muttered to himself, a habit he kept because it disarmed people. Giant gates. Likely reinforced alloy. Impressive budget. Out of my way, Deku! The shout was explosive, familiar, and laced with years of torment. Katsuki Bakugo stomped past him, shoulders hunched, radiating aggression. He stopped, glaring back at Izuku. I don't know what you're doing here, Bakugo growled. I told you to apply somewhere else. You're gonna get killed, you quirkless loser. Izuku stopped. He looked at Bakugo. For a second, the mask slipped. Izuku didn't look scared. He looked bored. He looked at Bakugo's neck and thought about how easy it would be to crush his larynx with a 5% output of the kinetic booster. But then, the mask was back. Izuku flinched, raising his hands. Keikaken! I just wanted to try. Even if I fail, I had to try, Bakugo scoffed, turning away. Whatever. Just don't get in my way, or I'll blast you to hell. He walked off. Arrogant, Izuku thought, his internal monologue cold and sharp. He leads with his right. He overextends when he's angry. He's sloppy. Izuku took a step forward and promptly tripped. It was a calculated clumsiness, a way to lower the guard of anyone watching. But as he fell, he realized he didn't need to catch himself. He floated. Whoa! Are you okay? Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face and brown bobbed hair was holding her hand out, her fingertips touching his backpack. I'm sorry for using my quirk on you without asking, she said, smiling brightly. She pressed her fingertips together, and Izuku dropped gently to the pavement. But it would be bad luck to fall on the exam day, right? Izuku stared at her. Subject female. Quirk, 0 gravity. Activation requires 5-point contact. Release is a hand seal. Useful for rescue and debris removal. Combat application limited without martial arts training. She was bright. Too bright. It was sickening. Thanks, Izuku stammered, channeling his old self. I'm really nervous. Me too. She pumped a fist. Let's do our best. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Izuku Midoriya. Good luck, Deku. She waved and ran off toward the orientation hall. Izuku stood there, dusting off his pants. She heard Bakugo call me that. She thinks it's my name. Irrelevant. He walked into the building. The sheep had entered the slaughterhouse. The written exam. It was laughably easy. Izuku sat in the large lecture hall, his pencil moving across the paper in a blur. Questions about quirk ethics, hero law, tactical mathematics. Sensei had drilled him on complexities far beyond this high school curriculum. He finished 20 minutes early. He spent the remaining time analyzing the proctors. Present mic, voice quirk. Directional speaker. Ectoplasm. Clone quirk. Sniper support. He felt a gaze on him. He glanced up. Bakugo was staring at him from 3 rows over, looking suspicious. Izuku offered a nervous, wobbly smile. Bakugo sneered and looked away. Good, Izuku thought. Underestimate me. It makes you easier to break. The practical exam. Welcome to the live performance. Present Mic's voice boomed through the speakers of the orientation hall, loud enough to rattle teeth. Izuku sat quietly, ignoring the headache it gave him. You examinees will be conducting a 10-minute mock urban battle. Mike shouted, striking a pose. You can bring whatever you want. Find the villains, and go wild. Izuku listened to the rules. 3 types of robots. Points based on difficulty. Then, a student with glasses and blue hair stood up. Tenya Ida? Izuku recognized the engines in his calves. The Ingenium family. Fast straight-line speed. Per cornering. Rigid moral code. May I ask a question? Ida shouted, pointing at the handout. There is a 4th villain type listed here. If this is an error, it is highly shameful for you, And you, he pointed directly at Izuku. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here on a field trip, you should leave immediately. The entire auditorium turned to look at Izuku. Hundreds of eyes. In the past, Izuku would have withered. He would have apologized profusely, turning beet red. Now, he felt a flicker of annoyance. Targeting the weak to elevate his own status. Typical hero behavior. Izuku stood up slowly. He bowed low. I apologize. I was just memorizing the rules. I'll be quiet. See that you are, Ida huffed, sitting down. Okay. Present Mike waved his hands. The 4th villain is 0 points. It's just an obstacle. Like a thwomp in Mario. Best to avoid it. Avoid it, Izuku thought. Or dismantle it. Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were massive. Izuku stood in the crowd of examinees, stretching his arms. He wore a simple green tracksuit he had brought. He spotted Uraraka nearby, taking deep breaths. He considered talking to her, maintaining the nice guy facade, but the gates began to buzz. And start. Present Mic's voice yelled from the observation tower. The other students hesitated, confused by the lack of a countdown. Izuku didn't. Explosion of speed. He activated the kinetic booster at 15%. His legs surged with power. He kicked off the ground, leaving a small crater in the pavement, and shot forward like a bullet. What the? Someone yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. Mike shouted. Follow that kid. Izuku was already a block away. He turned a corner and skidded to a halt. 3 one-pointer robots rolled toward him, their mechanical lenses glowing red. Target acquired. Izuku didn't panic. He analyzed. Chassis, reinforced aluminum. Weak points, neck joints, optical sensors. Speed slow. He didn't need a strategy. He needed brute force to sell his cover. Smash, he whispered. He lunged. He channeled the generic strength enhancer into his right arm. He didn't use all for one's black tendrils. He just used raw, stockpiled power. He punched the first robot in the center of its chest. Crunch. The metal crumpled like wet paper. The robot was launched backward, crashing into the other two. The force of the impact shattered them all. Izuku shook his hand. 3 points. He moved on. For the next 8 minutes, Izuku Midoriya was a blur of destruction. He didn't waste movement. He didn't show off. He simply efficiently dismantled every machine in his path. A 3-pointer lunged. He slid under it and uppercut the chassis. A 2-pointer tried to corner him. He used the environment, kicking a piece of rubble with enhanced strength to decapitate it. He was racking up points. 40, 52, 60. He was unstoppable. But he was also cold. He ran past other students struggling. A boy with a naval laser was pinned down by 2 robots. A hero would have helped. Izuku analyzed the situation. The boy has a range quirk. He needs to learn spacing. If I help him, I lose time. Izuku vaulted over the robots, destroyed a third one down the street, and kept running. I am not here to save them, he told himself. I am here to beat them. The observation room. A wall of monitors displayed the carnage. This year's batch looks promising, Midnight murmured, licking her lips. Especially that explosion boy in Center A. The one with the engines is solid, too, Ectoplasm noted. But look at this one. Snipe pointed a gloved finger at a screen showing Center B. The green kid. No flash. No wasted breath. He's taking them apart like he has the blueprints. In the back of the room, a gaunt figure in a yellow oversized suit leaned forward. All Might stared at the screen. He watched Izuku Midoriya tear the head off a robot with his bare hands. Young Midoriya. All Might whispered. You know him? Nizu, the principal, asked, climbing up onto the console. I met him once, All Might said, a frown creasing his shadowed face. He was quirkless then. Or so I thought. Late bloomer? Nizu hummed. It happens. His records say superpower. A generic name for a physical enhancement quirk. But his application of it, it's not raw instinct. It's trained. It's militant, Aizawa spoke up from his sleeping bag in the corner. His tired eyes were fixed on Izuku. He fights like a soldier, not a hero. He hasn't stopped to help a single student. All Might felt a chill. The boy moved with a ferocity that was unsettling. On the roof, the boy had been trembling, fragile. Now, he looked like a weapon. Let's see how he handles the pressure, Nizu said, his paw hovering over a large red button. The true test of a hero is not how they fight, but how they save. He pressed the button. The 0-pointer. The ground shook. Izuku skidded to a halt as the buildings around him began to collapse. Dust billowed into the air, choking the streets. From the smoke, a nightmare emerged. The 0-pointer was colossal. It was taller than the skyscrapers, a mountain of green metal and tanked treads. Its mere movement generated wind pressure that knocked students off their feet. What is that? Run! It's the 0-pointer. It's huge! The examinees broke. Panic ensued. Everyone turned and fled, screaming. Izuku stood his ground, shielding his eyes from the dust. Size, approximate 200 feet. Weight, massive. Structural integrity, high. Directive, retreat. It's worth 0 points. Engaging is illogical. Izuku turned to leave. He had 70 points. That was more than enough to pass. He had completed the mission. Oh wow! The cry was faint, buried under the rumble of the treads. Izuku froze. His enhanced hearing courtesy of a minor sensory quirk picked it up instantly. He looked back. Ochako Uraraka was trapped. She had tripped, and a massive piece of concrete debris had pinned her leg. She was struggling to lift it, but her quirk was making the debris float, not the rubble on top of it. The 0-pointer was looming over her. A massive metal hand was descending, ready to crush the street she was lying on. Izuku's mind raced. Scenario A. Leave her. She will be injured, potentially killed. Yui's safety protocols should intervene, but the timing is tight. Result: I pass. No risk. Scenario B. Save her. Risk high. I have to reveal more power. Reward. He paused. Reward: rescue points. Sensei had told him to embed himself. To make them love him. What better way to secure his place as the golden boy than a dramatic, self-sacrificial save? It wasn't altruism. It was a tactical maneuver. Fine, Izuku thought. Let's put on a show. He turned back toward the robot. He crouched low. He closed his eyes for a microsecond. Unlock. He pulled the kinetic booster to 40%. He activated Strength Enhancer. He activated a subtle recoil dampener in his bones. And just for a split second, he tapped into the airwalk to give him lift. Boom! Izuku launched himself. He didn't run, he flew. He was a green streak cutting through the dust. He shot upward, past the fleeing students, past the debris, soaring toward the face of the Titan. Down below, Uraraka looked up, tears in her eyes. She saw a silhouette against the sun. Deku? Izuku reached the head of the robot. He clenched his right fist. He channeled everything he could safely use without exploding his arm. Begone, he whispered. He punched. The impact was thunderous. The air pressure alone shattered the glass of the surrounding buildings. The metal face of the zero-pointer caved in, crumpling inward. The momentum carried through the machine. The massive robot groaned, tilted backward, and then began to fall, explosions rippling through its chassis. Izuku floated at the apex of his jump. For a moment he felt exhilarated. This is power, he thought. This is what All Might feels. Then, gravity took hold. He began to fall. Problem, Izuku analyzed as he plummeted. I broke my arm. He hadn't, actually. His durability quirks had protected him. But if he landed perfectly after that punch, it would look suspicious. A superpower quirk usually came with backlash. He had to sell the struggle. He flailed his arms. Ah! I'm falling. He prepared to use a burst of air pressure to cushion the landing at the last second. Slap! A hand touched his cheek. He stopped falling. He was floating, inches from the ground. Release, Uraraka panted. She dropped him. Izuku landed on his feet, but immediately collapsed to his knees, clutching his right arm, feigning agony. Uraraka was beside him, sick to her stomach from overusing her quirk, but worried. Are you okay? The dust cleared. The other students stopped running. They turned back. They saw the destroyed zero-pointer. They saw the boy kneeling in the rubble. He took it down in one hit. Did you see that jump? He saved that girl. Izuku looked up. He put on the mask. He widened his eyes, made his lip tremble. Is everyone safe? He asked, his voice shaking. Silence. Then cheering. That was amazing, dude. You're a monster. Recovery girl arrived, bustling through the crowd. Okay, move aside. Let me see him. She examined Izuku's arm. She frowned. It's purple, bruised deeply, muscle strain, but not broken. You have sturdy bones, Sonny. I drink a lot of milk, Izuku lied through gritted teeth. Here. She kissed his forehead. Her quirk accelerated his natural healing. The soreness faded. As the exam ended, Izuku stood up. He looked at the wreckage of the zero-pointer. He had done it. He had played the part perfectly. 1 week later, the apartment was quiet. Inko was in the kitchen, nervously making tea. On the table sat a letter. The wax seal of UA High. Izuku, Inko said, her voice trembling. Do you want to open it together? Izuku sat on the couch. He looked at the letter. He knew what was inside. He knew he had passed. But he had to play the nervous son. Yeah, Mom. He tore the envelope open. A metal disc slid out. A hologram projected onto the wall. I am here. All Might's face filled the room. Inko gasped, covering her mouth. As a projection, Izuku stared at the man. The hatred in his gut was a cold, solid thing. Young Midoriya! All Might shouted. You did well on the written exam. But the practical, you scored 70 villain points. A formidable score. But that is not all. The video changed. It showed the clip of Izuku saving Uraraka. It showed Uraraka in the judge's room, asking to give him some of her points. A hero's job is to save people, All Might declared. And you risked everything to save that girl. That is the true essence of heroism. Rescue points, 60. Total score, 130. You are the top scorer, young Midoriya. All Might reached his hand out toward the camera. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Inko burst into tears. She hugged Izuku tightly. Oh, Izuku! You did it! You really did it! I'm so proud of you! I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Izuku hugged his mother back. He rested his chin on her shoulder, staring at the blank wall where All Might's face had been. It's okay, Mom, he whispered. His eyes were devoid of warmth. I'm going to be a hero. Later that night, Izuku stood in the dark command center. Top scorer, All for One said, sounding delighted. Higher than I expected. You have already surpassed All Might's expectations. He bought it, Izuku said. They all did. The recoil acting worked. Recovery Girl suspects nothing but durability. Excellent. All for One handed Izuku a new item. It was a tie. The red tie of the Yui uniform. Put it on. Izuku tied the knot. He adjusted the collar. He looked at his reflection in the glass of the quirk containers. He looked like a hero. He looked like the symbol of hope he had always wanted to be, but the reflection smiled, and it was the smile of a wolf. Phase 1 is complete, Izuku said. Phase 2 begins on the first day, All for One commanded. Infiltrate. Gather intelligence. Find the security weaknesses. And identify the students who can be turned or broken. Understood, Sensei. Izuku Midoriya turned away from the reflection. The Fanba was dead. The Successor had risen. And UA High had just opened its doors to the monster that would destroy it. The knot of the red tie felt like a noose. Izuku Midoriya stood in front of the bathroom mirror, his fingers deftly manipulating the fabric. He adjusted the collar of the gray blazer, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. The uniform of UA High, the skin of the enemy. You must be the perfect student. Sensei's voice echoed in the corridors of his mind. Humble. Brave. Harmless. Izuku stared at his reflection. The dark circles under his eyes had faded thanks to Dr. Garaki's nutritional regimen, but his eyes themselves seemed older. They held secrets now. They held the weight of a stolen legacy. Izuku! You're going to be late. Inko's voice drifted from the kitchen, laced with happy anxiety. Coming, Mom! Izuku called back. The mask slipped into place instantly. His expression softened, his posture slouched slightly to diminish his confident frame, and a practiced, nervous smile touched his lips. He grabbed his yellow backpack, packed not just with textbooks, but with encrypted drives and analysis on UA's security grid, and walked out the door. The lion's den. The hallways of UA were daunting, designed to intimidate. The doors were massive, built for giants and mutants, screaming the school's philosophy. We are larger than life. Izuku found Class 1A. The door was 20 feet tall. Intimidation tactic, Izuku noted mentally. Reinforces the hierarchy before you even enter. He slid the door open. Remove your foot from the desk. It is disrespectful to the UA alumni who crafted it. Ha! Stop talking, Four Eyes. Who died and made you boss? The voices were familiar. Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku stepped inside. The morning sunlight flooded the classroom. Bakugo was leaning back in his chair, feet propped up, sneering at Ida, who was chopping the air with robotic hand motions. When Bakugo saw Izuku, the sneer vanished, replaced by a look of sheer, frozen disbelief. Deku? The word wasn't a scream this time. It was a question. Ida spun around. Ah. You are the one from the entrance exam. The one who figured out the structure of the test. Ida marched over, extending a hand. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I heard, Izuku stammered, rubbing the back of his neck. He shook Ida's hand. Grip is firm. Calluses on the palms. He trains upper body despite being a leg-based engine type. Diligent. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya, I must apologize. Ida announced loudly, drawing the attention of the few other students present. I misjudged you completely. I thought you were merely muttering, but you discerned the true nature of the exam while I was blinded by surface rules. You are a superior student. Oh no, I just got lucky. Izuku waved his hands dismissively. Deku, a shadow fell over them. Bakugo stood there, vibrating with suppressed rage. His red eyes bored into Izuku. How the hell did you get in? Bakugo growled, his voice low and dangerous. You're quirkless. Did you cheat? Did you bribe someone? The room went quiet. This was the first test. If Izuku cowered, he was the old Deku. If he fought back too hard, he broke character. Izuku looked at Bakugo. He saw the sweat beading on Bakugo's forehead. He saw the insecurity masked as aggression. I'm a late bloomer, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice trembling just enough to be convincing. It manifested, recently? The doctor said it was dormant. Bullshit. Bakugo's palms crackled. You don't just get a quirk after 15 years of being a pebble. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. A yellow sleeping bag lay in the doorway like a giant caterpillar. A man with messy black hair and bloodshot eyes unzipped it and stood up, sipping a pouch of jelly. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, looking at his watch. Time is limited. You kids aren't rational enough. Shota Aizawa. Eraserhead. Underground hero. Quirk, erasure. Fighting style, binding cloth / martial arts. Threat level high. Izuku felt a spike of adrenaline. This was the man who could see through him, literally. If Aizawa erased his quirks, would he erase all of them? Or just the active one? Or would he see the void itself? I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, the man deadpanned. He reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out gym uniforms. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. The assessment. The air on the training field was crisp. Class 1A stood in a cluster, wearing their blue UA gym uniforms. A quirk apprehension test? The class exclaimed in unison. But what about orientation? The ceremony? Uraraka asked. If you're going to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, turning his back to them. UA is known for its freestyle traditions. That applies to the teachers as well. He looked over his shoulder, his eyes cold. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. You did these in middle school without quirks. Now we do them with quirks. He pointed at Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your softball throw record in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Anything goes as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms, a feral grin spreading across his face. He glanced at Izuku. Watch this, useless. Daithai! Boom! The explosion was massive. The ball shot into the stratosphere, leaving a trail of smoke. Die! Izuku muttered under his breath. A bit excessive for a ball game. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device. The class erupted. 700 meters? That looks so fun. We can use our quirks as much as we want? Awesome! Aizawa's expression darkened. Fun? You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that during a crisis? He grinned, a terrifying expression that stretched his dry skin. Right. The student with the lowest total score across all 8 events will be judged to have no potential, and will be expelled immediately. Expelled? Uraraka shrieked. But it's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered. Villain attacks aren't fair. Yui is here to train you to overturn that unfairness. Izuku watched Aizawa closely. Analysis. Is he bluffing? Yui records show Aizawa has expelled an entire class of first years before. He values efficiency. He hates wasted time. This is a real threat. Izuku looked at his hands. He had to perform. But he had to perform correctly. He couldn't use air walk for the long jump. He couldn't use hardening for the grip test. He had to rely solely on the superpower, the combination of the kinetic booster and strength enhancer, and his own physical conditioning. Event 1 50-meter dash. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Bakugo, 4.13 seconds. Izuku stepped up against a boy with a laser naval plan, kinetic booster to legs. 10% output. Izuku crouched. Start. The ground cracked slightly under his toes. He blurred forward. 5.51 seconds. Average for a speed type, but superhuman compared to a civilian. Acceptable. Event 2, grip strength. Shoji, 540 kilograms. Izuku gripped the device. He channeled the strength enhancer into his forearm. The metal groaned. 160 kilograms. Enough to crush a throat. Not enough to raise eyebrows. The events continued. Izuku stayed consistently in the upper middle of the pack. He was blending in. Then came the ball throw. Uraraka got infinity. The class lost their minds. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku walked to the circle. His heart rate was steady, controlled by breathing techniques Sensei had taught him. He picked up the ball. If I use 100% of the strength enhancer, I can clear 800 meters easily. But that would blow my cover story of recoil damage. I need to simulate a struggle. He wound up. He prepared to channel the power. Suddenly, the power vanished. The stockpile in his muscles evaporated. The kinetic booster went dormant. Even the passive danger sense flickered out. Izuku felt empty. Just like before, he threw the ball. It landed 46 meters away. What? Izuku blinked. He turned around. Aizawa stood there, his scarf floating, his hair standing on end. His eyes glowed a piercing red. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said flatly. Erasure. Izuku whispered. Visual contact required. Whatever he looks at loses access to the quirk factor. Does he erase the factor or block the synapse? The entrance exam was definitely not rational, Aizawa said, walking closer. Even if you have power, you can't control it. In the exam, you broke your arm to save one person. If you do that in the field, you become a liability. Who will save you? Izuku stared at him. This teacher, he was right. In the context of a normal hero student, he was right. You're saying I can't be a hero, Izuku said quietly. I'm saying I can't look away from you, Aizawa said. You have zero potential if you break yourself. He blinked. His hair fell. The pressure returned. The quirks flooded back into Izuku's body, a rush of heat that made his fingertips tingle. You have 2 tries left. Hurry up. Izuku stood in the circle. He wants to see control. He thinks my quirk is a glass cannon. If I show mastery now, he'll be suspicious. I have to show progress within the narrative of a struggling student.